Well, Democrats have been guilty of gerrymandering for, well, forever. Let's face it. And now, because Texas is deciding that they want a piece of the action, Democrats are crying foul. But JB Pritzker, the big governor of Illinois, he dared to show up on Meet the Press and try to, explain how it's fine when we do it, but it's bad when Republicans do it. And it was an embarrassment for him. Honestly, he was like a beached whale. I'll show you all of that coming up in a second. But first, look who's back, everybody. It's Beto.
We're not going to let him stop us. Are you with me on that? Ándale. It also means, as Mark was saying earlier, we don't await the punch thrown by these would-be fascists to land. We punch first, and we punch harder. We want California and New Jersey and Illinois and Maryland and every other state where the Democrats hold the governor's mansion, the assembly, and the state senate to redraw their congressional districts now, not wait for Texas to move first, to maximize Democratic Party advantage. Listen, you may say to yourself, well, those aren't the rules. There are no refs in this game. Fuck the rules. We are going to win whatever it takes. We're going to take this to them in every way that we can.
You kiss your mama with that mouth, Beto? What's that all about? It is so great when Napoleon Dynamite is running for office again, isn't it? I'm so excited for that. So let me get this straight. He wants Maryland to go and redraw their districts right now and finally get a handle on the overwhelming Republican representation in that state. I live in Maryland. Did you know that there are 8 congressional districts? And right now it's 7-1, Democrat to Republican. And he's real excited about Maryland finally finishing the job. Because after all, let's make Maryland, Massachusetts again or something. Andale? What was that andale? Is that cultural appropriation? Oh, no, it's not, because his name's Beto. So he can do that. Andale. What is he, the Cheeto Bandito? Is he Speedy Gonzalez? All right, let's swing over to Fox News Sunday yesterday. Shannon Bream asked Governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, a pretty pertinent question when it comes to redistricting. Why was it okay when you did it?
Here's how National Review summarized it. They said it was only 3 years ago that New York's Democratic legislature drew up a map so brazenly contemptuous of basic rules that govern a district's contiguousness that the state's Democrat-dominated Court of Appeals threw it out. The New York Times at the time called those maps comically contorted. That's their quote. So your state's highest court at the time, all the judges appointed by Democratic governors, they threw the maps out. So fair to say Democrats have done what they're now accusing Republicans of doing.
No, we followed the rules. We do it every 10 years. We base it on census.
But the court said you didn't follow the rules.
Well, we did follow the rules.
So the court was wrong?
Well, we followed the rules.
There you go. You got to hand it to her for sticking on the talking point. We followed the rules. Okay, but literally the court threw it out because you broke the rules. We followed the rules. We followed the rules. We followed the rules. We followed the rules. They didn't follow the rules. And by the way, this whole, we do it by the rules because it's every 10 years. Have you noticed something? We've been talking about this all week, and I love that it's almost like a primer, not just in how our government works and how the Constitution works and how the census works and how appropriations work and all of these things. It's great. I mean, this is the civics lesson you never got in your public school, and that's a good thing, all right? But this is also media training. Did you notice something? Did you notice the words that she used? We follow the rules. They're breaking the rules. It's funny. We are not a country of rules. Our Constitution is not a set of rules. What are they? Say it with me. Laws. They're laws. We're a country of laws. We're a nation of laws. Let me just be clear here. If Democrats like Kathy Hochul in any way had a scintilla of proof or in some way felt the moral high ground to accuse Republicans of breaking the law and acting illegally here, she would say it, but she didn't. She said they're breaking the rules, but not breaking the law. You know why? Because they're not breaking the law. There's nothing illegal about what they're doing. So now they sound like a second grader on a playground. You didn't follow the rules. You're breaking the rules. Fine, go cry to a judge. Oh, that's right. You can't do that. The judge will throw the case out. All right, let's swing over to News Nation now. One of the Democrats who have fled to another state because, apparently you can mess with Texas. This guy was whining quite a bit.
You've made it clear, you represent Democrats and Republicans. You represent human constituents. If this,
That's right.
the most extreme version of the maps under consideration in California were to go into effect, there'd only be 3 Republicans out of 52 seats in California. That's a pretty wild number. What do you say to the Republicans in Southern California who would be squeezed so far out? They didn't gerrymander Texas.
In Texas, I think they did gerrymander, and they're going to gerrymander so extreme you're going to have these weird-looking districts. You're not going to see that in California.
You've made it clear.
All right, I apologize. That was a congressman from California, David Mint. But there you go. Yeah, as long as it's not weird-looking. That's all that matters. That's it. No, it's right there in Article 1, I think, of the Constitution or something. Yeah. No, each state can redistrict based on the congressional makeup and population of their state, as long as it's not weird looking. By the way, has he seen his governor? Is there anything more weird looking than Gavin Newsom, Governor Hair Gel? That's all good stuff. But then JB Pritzker, Jabba the Hutt Pritzker, he's the poster child for weird looking districts in his state. Sorry, what did you think I was going to say? He's the poster child for weird looking districts in his state. Illinois is ground zero for politically corrupt gerrymandering. So, of course, the Democrats are pushing him out there. He's the tip of the spear on this thing. And I got to hand it to Kristen Welker at Meet the Press. She sort of stumbled accidentally into some sane and rational questions. But let's not give her too much credit yet. I'll break it down in a sec. Let's watch it first.
I do want to look at the map of Illinois. Let's take a look at this. Despite President Trump winning 44% of the statewide vote in 2024, Republicans hold only 3 of Illinois' 17 districts. These districts seem to be designed to maximize Democratic advantage. What do you say to those who argue that it's hypocritical for you to criticize Texas for partisanship when your state also drew maps to boost your party's standing?
Well, remember that what Texas is trying to do is, again, violate the Voting Rights Act. We didn't. We held public hearings, legislative hearings. People attended them. They spoke out. There was a map that was put out. There were actually changes made to the map, and a map was passed. And it was done at the end of the census, the decennial census. So that's how it's done in this country. You talked about how rare it is to do what he's doing. Yes, it is. What's even rarer is to do it at the behest of the president of the United States, who's clearly attempting to and says that he deserves to have 5 more seats.
All right, so one more follow-up from Kristen Welker, where, again, JB Pritzker's basic response is, but Trump, it's really about Trump. It's Trump. But can we break this down real quickly, this question that was asked? Let's go back to the map here, as you can see. By the way, the big blue thing sticking up there like it's a giant phallic symbol that clearly JB Pritzker has, let's call it district envy, I guess, from other states. But that blue swath that went through there, the only saving grace here is that when they redrew the districts and created that giant blue schlong in the middle of Illinois, the Republican who lost his seat was Adam Kinzinger. That's fantastic. But listen to Kristen Welker's question.
Of the statewide vote in 2024, Republicans hold only 3 of Illinois' 17 districts. These districts seem to be designed to maximize Democratic advantage.
Seem to be? They seem to, I don't know, I'm just guessing here. I could be wrong, but it kind of looks like you created this giant thing sticking across the state from East St. Louis up to Springfield, the capital, just so you could capture as many Democrats. And look at that giant red thing that wraps all the way around it just to give a token Republican some sort of representation. But I don't know, it seems like you did something. Seems to be. Oh, and then this.
What do you say to those who argue that it's hypocritical for you to criticize Texas?
That's such a trick that these TV hosts, these teleprompter readers do. What do you say to people who would claim this, that, and the other thing? What do you say to people? Some will say, there are those who would say, no, just be real. Anybody, any normal human being would look at that and know that JB Pritzker is a complete hypocrite. But again, a little bit of credit to Kristen Welker as she did this follow-up.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that the president of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it.
There you go. We're back to Trump, Trump, Trump. But did you get that? Did you get that? She basically calls him out, says that any nonpartisan, third-party, objective reading of what Illinois does gives them a grade F. It's everything that's wrong with redistricting in this country. If anything, Texas is responding and reacting to exactly what Illinois did and using the rules and the law to be able to execute it. And when he's called out on it,
with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction.
There you go. Hey, raising the fact that I'm guilty of exactly what I'm accusing them of doing, pointing out that I'm a complete hypocrite, saying that I'm lying to your face and getting away with murder in Illinois while I'm charging Texas with violating the Voting Rights Act. That's a distraction. Don't distract people. Don't distract people with the truth. Don't distract people by telling them honestly what I've done in Illinois. That's a distraction. It's just a distraction. And of course, Kristen Welker dutifully changed the subject and moved on. But then she brought in another guest, this guy. Remember him? Yeah, it's Obama's wingman, former Attorney General Eric Holder. They brought him in as an expert on voting rights laws, on redistricting, on disenfranchisement, and of course, racial gerrymandering. Eric Holder was the expert. Because why would they bring in Eric Holder like 10 years after he was Attorney General? Why is he relevant to this conversation? Well, I'll tell you in a second, but first let's take a look at what he had to say.
Let me ask you, how can gerrymandering both be a threat to democracy and also the way to save it?
Well, there's no question that gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. It allows politicians to pick their voters as opposed to citizens choosing their representatives. But we are now in a situation where we find ourselves where authoritarian moves are being made by the White House through various states, Texas most prominent among them. And there has to be a response to that. What I've said is that we have to protect our democracy now if we ultimately want to be able to save it. And so taking the reasonable steps that have been proposed in California, I think it makes a great deal of sense in this moment. A temporary way in which to respond to that which is happening in Texas, with the thought that after this crisis has passed, we get back to the fight against gerrymandering by anybody.
Stedman's never been the same since Oprah broke up with him, right? And I mean, imagine how awful it would be if you're like dating the richest, most powerful woman in the world, and suddenly she leaves you for Gayle King, right? That's got to be devastating. I'm sorry, what? Oh, that's not the same guy? He looks a lot like Stedman, doesn't he? Remember Stedman? All right, I guess that is Eric Holder, the Attorney General. Did you pick up on that? This is a threat to democracy. Gerrymandering is a great threat to democracy, and that's why we've got to do it. That'll show them. Don't you dare. You're threatening democracy, Texas? All right, that's it. We're going to have 18 states threaten democracy, too. That'll show you. Let's break this down one more time. What was this answer?
To our democracy, it allows politicians to pick their voters as opposed to citizens choosing their representatives. But we are now in a situation.
Wait, you could say that about any time you're redistricting a state. Of course, the politicians. Well, I am in absolute Looney Tune land right now. They have been doing this since literally the turn of 2 centuries ago, the early 19th century. Like we're talking about the Jefferson administration. Thomas Jefferson, not George Jefferson. He was never president, although I did vote for him once. Seriously. This is like politicians choosing their voters. Yeah, it's called redistricting. You hypocritical liar. But yeah, no, go ahead.
Where we find ourselves where authoritarian moves are being made by the White House through various states, Texas most prominent among them. And there has to be a response to that. What I've said is that we have to protect our democracy now if we ultimately want to be able to save it. And so taking the reasonable steps that have been proposed in California, I think it makes a great deal of sense in this moment.
In this moment, if I had a dollar, seriously, if you're watching Democrats right now appear in doing their media hits, if the drinking game is take a shot when they say in this moment, you'll be blotto. You'll be done. You'll be like Nancy Pelosi by 1 PM. That's how bad it's going to get. That's been market tested. It's been, focus group. They love the term in this moment. So this is a threat to democracy. And if we're going to save our democracy, which of course it's not a democracy, is it? It's a constitutional republic. It's a threat to democracy. But if we have to save our democracy, the best thing to do is to do that thing that I'm calling a threat to democracy and do it 10 times bigger so that we can save the democracy in this moment. But I ask again, why Eric Holder? I mean, you got Gavin Newsom to pick from. You got the JB Pritzker. You got Kathy Hochul. You got Gretchen Whitmer. You got Kamala Harris. You got Chuck Schumer. You got Hakeem Jeffries. You got AOC. You got all Jasmine Crockett. Just give me a little Crockett, right? Why Eric Holder? Why bring out Eric Holder? Well, I have an answer to my own hypothetical question. Take a look at this. Eric Holder happens to be the head of an organization that he founded called the Democratic Redistricting. That's the name of the group. NDRC, National Democrat Redistricting Committee. There you go. This is their banner on their X feed. Gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. The National Democratic Redistricting Committee is fighting for fair maps and more representative democracy. Really? They're fighting for fair maps, everybody. Great. And look, you go to the website and there he is. Eric Holder, former attorney. Look at him standing right next to Barack Obama because he's his wingman. Our fight is now. There is no off season in redistricting because their plan, as you can see from their X profile, is to fight for fair maps. Hashtag fair maps. There you go. Well, that makes sense then. You bring in Eric Holder, he runs a group, and they're fighting for fair maps. Funny, though, the word democratic is in there. I'm sure he just means, the use of democracy, right? For voting purposes. He doesn't mean democratic like Democratic Party, although there is an awful lot of blue on this logo. I mean, look at the logo there. You can see it. It's the United States of America, and it's just different shades of blue with little puzzle pieces, like they're putting together a puzzle. That's an interesting logo for a group that's just fighting for, what is it? Hashtag fair maps. That's curious, isn't it? Well, our friend Scott Walker, former governor of Wisconsin, now president of Young America's Foundation, he shared this little document with everybody on social media. It's called a 990 form. Anybody can pull it. It's a federal form that a nonprofit organization files so that they can have their nonprofit status. And there they are, National Democratic Redistricting Committee. This is great. Let's find out what this organization is all about, because they're just fighting for hashtag fair maps, right? So if you scroll down to summary here, it says briefly describe the organization's mission or most significant activities. And when they filed for their nonprofit status to be able to raise money and become politically active to fight for hashtag fair maps, when they described what their goals were, what their agenda was, what the purpose of the organization was, they didn't say anything about fair maps with or without the hashtag. Look what they described their organization's mission to be: favorably position Democrats for the redistricting process. Now, of course, you may look at that and say, well, clearly they're reacting to Trump. They're reacting to Trump and those authoritarian Texas Republicans who started gerrymandering and violating the Voting Rights Act, right? So they just put this group together quickly, right? No, look in the upper left corner. What does it say? This was formed in 2017. They've been around for almost a decade. That Illinois map, I bet these guys helped draw it. And Maryland, and Massachusetts, and California, and all that. That's what they do. So they bring in Eric Holder to be the expert on hashtag fair maps and on the law. No, he's an activist. He's an advocate. This is what he does. He formed the organization. He raises money for it. And he goes into states and they use computer models to figure out how to maximize Democrats in Congress. And there's Meet the Press trotting him out like he's some sort of expert on the law or on civil rights or on voting rights. You can't hate these people enough. But the fight keeps going, and they keep getting upset, and they keep screaming from the rooftops, and they've even had to drag Beto O'Rourke out to start dropping F-bombs and yell andale that they can't stop what's happening, and it's going to continue. And finally, we're going to have some fair maps, real fair maps, without the hashtag.